All right, welcome everybody. Who's got a question? I said something yesterday in a Q&A session about not overeating 3 types of greens: spinach, Swiss chard, and beet greens. Because of why exactly was the question? And the answer was oxalates. Hydration, very important. And important for preventing kidney stones as well. So if you are eating cups of greens a day, as you should, as everybody should, I encourage you to diversify your greens and include other greens. You can do cups of collard greens and arugula and kale, but shouldn't do cups a day of those high oxalate greens. The question was, I keep talking about this stuff called sulforaphane in broccoli. What? I don't get it. To paraphrase. Okay, no, it's actually kind of complicated. And so I have a video called The Second Strategy for something about broccoli, for eating broccoli, cooking broccoli. And it talks about various methods to maximize the compound within cruciferous vegetables that we think accounts for its near miraculous benefits. When I'm talking about cruciferous vegetables, I'm talking about cabbage family vegetables like broccoli, kale, collards, cabbage, arugula. These are cruciferous vegetables, and the reason why they take a hallowed place within my daily dozen, like I tell people to eat vegetables, but the healthiest of healthy vegetables are cruciferous vegetables. Why? Because they are unique in that they contain within them a class of precursor compounds called glucosinolates, which when you cut these vegetables, the glucosinolates are transformed by an enzyme called myrosinase into sulforaphane, which is what we want. That is what we think accounts for their benefits. And you say, wait a second, what benefits are we talking about? Oh, what benefits are we not talking about? Type in broccoli into nutritionfacts.org, and you'll see these remarkable studies about people eating broccoli sprouts, etc. So for example, there was a study on autism, found that you randomize young boys with autism to broccoli sprouts or not. And it was placebo-controlled studies, so they can pack them in, so you didn't even know who was in which group till the end. The first and only intervention ever proven to actually improve the core symptoms of autism. What was the magic drug? It wasn't a drug. It was broccoli sprouts. And why use broccoli sprouts? Broccoli sprouts are particularly concentrated in these sulforaphane precursor compounds. So they don't actually contain sulforaphane. They contain sulforaphane precursor compounds, so you have to do something to the vegetables in order to get the benefits. So glucosinolates, we could write it on the board. Here we go. Oh, look at this, we got a board. Glucosinolates to sulfur. Okay, and this is catalyzed by an enzyme called myrosinase. Okay, so this is what's inside broccoli. Cruciferous veggies. Okay, but this is what we want. And this is not what's in. This is all that's in the vegetables. This is what we want. Okay, so if you... in fact, I just did this recently. You take a head of cauliflower, if you have an Instapot, one of these electronic pressure cookers. You can put a whole head of cauliflower, which is a cruciferous vegetable, and 3 minutes later, poof, you have whole cooked cauliflower, and you can slice it like steaks and put over a wonderful limoncini sauce, whatever you want to do. Okay, that is a terrible way to cook cauliflower. And the reason is this enzyme is destroyed by heat. Destroyed by heat. So you cook that cauliflower, myrosinase is completely killed, and you don't get sulforaphane. Okay. Now, you get a little bit of sulforaphane. You do. Why? Because there's actually, this enzyme is found in cruciferous vegetables, and some kinds of gut bacteria actually have morosinase in them. And so depending on your gut flora, you may actually be able to get a little bit of sulforaphane eating even cauliflower cooked like that. Okay, but what would have been a much better way to cook that cauliflower? So how does this reaction happen? Morosinase is activated. Actually, what happens is like a chemical flare. If you look at a chemical flare, it's two different chemicals in two different compartments. And when you crack the flare open, they mix. They're in like little glass tubes. They mix, and then the chemical reaction happens. And so inside, it's cool. If we could actually show a cell of a broccoli leaf, you'd see there's these little vacuoles, these little spheres packed full of active enzyme, packed full of glucosinolase, and they're separated. And when that's disrupted, when that chemical flare is broken, for example, when you cut it with a knife, or you bite it with your teeth, or, which is the whole reason it evolved, a bug nibbles on that leaf. A bug nibbles on the leaf, and all of a sudden, those two little vacuoles, those two little spheres open up, and they mix. The enzyme mixes with glucosinolase, and poof, sulforaphane is born, and sulforaphane tastes like broccoli, and the bug goes, ooh, this tastes like broccoli, and goes bite some other plant. Okay, so that's why it happened. Okay, so if instead of cooking that whole cauliflower whole, if I first would have chopped it up, then when it was raw, then I would have been the bug, nibbling, I would have been chopping it up, spilling those contents, mixing this up, sulforaphane is created, and sulforaphane is heat stable. So are glucosinolates. It's only the enzyme that's knocked off by heat. So you can cook the sulforaphane all you want, and you would get the benefits. So if you're making broccoli soup, how do you make broccoli soup? You can imagine most people, I think, cook broccoli and then blend it in a blender, right? So you cook broccoli in water, and then it heats up, and then you put it in a blender and make soup. That's the wrong way to do it, because you're killing off the enzyme. What you do is you chop while it's raw, and then you have to wait 45 minutes. This takes 45 minutes to happen. So that's what I call the hack and hold technique. The hack and hold technique is you chop your greens, your cruciferous vegetables, you wait 45 minutes, and then you cook them. Then you can cook all you want, because we already created this, but it takes 45 minutes. So what do I do every morning? Where is Briege? There she is. My beloved can attest that every morning I get up and I chop my collard greens, or I chop my kale. And she said, why is there all this chopped greens? That's a weird breakfast. It's not breakfast, that's for lunch, because I got to hack and hold. All right. So, but then I came out with this video called the second strategy for cooking broccoli or eating broccoli, and that is, what if you don't want to wait? What if you forgot to chop your, and you're hungry, and you want to eat those collard greens, and you don't want to wait 45 minutes? Aha! Well, there's another cruciferous vegetable. Mustard greens are cruciferous vegetables. What are mustard greens made out of? Mustard seeds. You take a mustard seed, it turns into mustard greens. And what is mustard powder? It's just powdered mustard seeds. So researchers had this idea, maybe there's active enzyme in mustard powder that you buy on the shelf. So they took a little mustard powder, so they boiled greens without cutting it, or they cut it and didn't wait 45 minutes. And so the enzyme should have been destroyed, no sulforaphane. And then once it was cooked, they sprinkled a little mustard powder, which you can get anywhere at the store. And it was teeny, like a little pinch. Teeny little pinch of mustard powder, poof! Sulforaphane was made right there. Magic! That's the second strategy. You don't want to wait? Sprinkle a little mustard powder. So the only reason why you'd hack and hold is if you don't like mustard powder. I mean, it's a little bit, but some dishes maybe, if you're putting a mustard sauce on it, well, then who cares, right? Also, horseradish. That's a cruciferous vegetable packed with morosinase, packed with this enzyme. So you can add it afterwards, or you can hack and hold. Those are the two techniques for maximizing sulforaphane, but that's why it's complicated, because it's not actually in the vegetable. You actually have to create it to get the benefits? Oh, fantastic question. Okay, what about frozen broccoli? Frozen broccoli, the way anyone knows their food processing, what you have to do when you freeze greens or freeze a vegetable like broccoli, it'll rot unless you kill the enzymes off first. So what they do is they blanch the vegetables before they freeze them. Kill off the enzymes so the greens don't auto-digest in the bag in the freezer. Anyone who's tried to like freeze their own greens, it doesn't work. You got to blanch them first. So they kill off the enzyme before they freeze it. So if you're starting with frozen broccoli, hack and hold, too late. What you need, mustard powder. That's where you whip out the mustard powder. All right, and then boom, you get all the benefits. Or look, you can eat raw. Obviously, you can eat raw broccoli. Now, your digestive enzymes kill off the enzyme too, but it takes, you have 45 minutes in your stomach. So you eat raw broccoli, you eat broccoli sprouts, and you get all the benefits because in your stomach, the enzyme's doing its magic, and by the time the enzyme gets destroyed, it's too late, it's done its business. So you can get the benefits of raw through cooking if you hack and hold or the mustard powder. Great question. Woo! Yeah.
Quick follow-up to that.
I know. On this whole session, it's going to be broccoli. That's it. Oh, yeah.
Does mustard also apply there?
Oh, good question. Now you say, wait a second.
What was the question?
The question is, mustard powder? What about just mustard? Maybe you don't have mustard powder in the house, but hey, you probably have a little mustard that's been sitting there since the last July 4th or something. Okay, so would mustard work? I don't know how mustard is made. The answer is it's never been tested, so we don't know, and it would depend on whether or not mustard is heated. If you make your own mustard, obviously, you can make it without heating it, but I don't know how mustard is made. So unless there's a mustard maker in the, okay, yeah. So soy protein isolate is basically, it's like the table sugar of the carbohydrate kingdom or the oil of the fat kingdom. You take a whole food, and how most table sugar comes from sugar beets these days. You take a sugar beet, you take a beet, perfectly healthy food, or you strip away all the nutrition, you have sucrose, table sugar, no nutrition, just calories, empty calories, that's table sugar, right? Or you take a walnut, you strip away its nutrition, you're left with walnut oil. Still has a little vitamin E, some fat-soluble nutrients, but basically, most of the nutrition is gone. You take split pea. When they talk about pea proteins, they're not talking about garden peas. They're talking about yellow split peas, typically. So you take the split peas, you make a nice split pea soup or something, packed with nutrition. You strip out everything except the protein. You isolate the protein, and you're left with pea protein isolate. Okay, so it has all the protein, in fact, more concentrated, by weight or by volume, but the nutrition has been removed. So it's not a whole food. It's the kind of antithesis of a whole food. You're just getting the protein. Now, it would be better to eat pea protein isolate than beef protein isolate or whey protein. I mean, it's still a plant protein, but it's just the protein, and so you're missing out on the rest of the nutrition. In fact, for UBS, which is some big financial services company in Zurich, I just actually wrote a thing comparing the Beyond Burger to Impossible Burger to the black bean burger in my How Not to Die cookbook, actually. Which is made out of black beans, like real, okay. So, and so it's interesting to do kind of a nutritional breakdown, and kind of compare. It's interesting. Impossible, I didn't even know that, adds lots of, they fortify it with also, they add potassium, interestingly, they add all sorts of things, to try to add back in. So when you go from split peas to just the pea protein isolate, you take away all the potassium, which is one of the wonderful things about legumes. So they actually just add potassium back in. Kind of like, white bread. They enrich white flour with, some of the B vitamins that have been stripped away when you make white flour. So some of these key nutrients, actually Impossible comes out pretty far ahead because they kind of add it back in. But of course, there's lots of nutrients they're missing. Key of which is fiber, right? You move the fiber content. So I talk about the kind of environmental implications and the health implications. It has all the protein. In fact, it has more protein because it's more concentrated. I mean, but they want to match or actually exceed. So I think a quarter-pound patty of burger, if I remember correctly, 18 grams of protein, whereas Impossible Beyond have 20 grams of protein, approximately. So they wanted to since kind of protein is the buzzword, and it's like, where am I going to get my protein? They wanted to make a plant-based burger that equaled or was even more protein concentrated. Oh, you want protein? Look at this. Look at that. Measly beef, 18. We got 20, right? How are you going to do that? You're not going to do that with black beans. Black beans have fiber. I mean, you're not going to eat a burger this big, right? You want to eat a little concentrated, right? I mean, that's why they're using an isolate, is because they want to pack a lot of protein in a small space, because they want to compete on the same selling point, right? So why do people eat nutritionally? When the meat industry says we have nutrient-dense foods, they're talking about basically three things. We are a good source of protein, iron, and zinc. And so these plant-based burger companies wanted to match them head-to-head, protein, iron, zinc. In fact, add zinc to even make it more zinc than beef, But the benefits of plant-based sources of protein is they have they have the protein, iron, zinc, plus they have all the plant-based nutrients like the fiber and the folate, the potassium, things missing from the animal sources. It's a yellow life food. It's a processed plant food.
The second ingredient is canola oil.
No, worse. Coconut oil. So it is a coconut oil. So it's the worst, second worst possible. The palm would be even worse. The Impossible Burger has the same amount of saturated fat as beef. Of course, it has no cholesterol by definition. No plant-based product could have any cholesterol, but same saturated fat. The Beyond Burger almost has the same amount of saturated fat. They have cocoa butter and coconut oil, and ironically, actually more sodium. So Beyond Burger has 25% more sodium, more salt, than a regular kind of seasoned beef burger. So most of the GMO soy is actually used for feed crops. So most of the soy foods like soy milk are actually organic, and by definition, the 2002 USDA organic standards, there's no GMOs allowed. But the harms from GMOs is not the actual gene construct itself, but it's the fact that it allows for more herbicide application. I mean, the whole point of being genetically modified soybeans is that it's Roundup ready. You can normally with a soybean crop, you have to wait till you actually harvest the soybeans before you add an herbicide, because otherwise you kill off your soybean plants. But if you make the soybean plants resistant to the herbicide, glyphosate, then you can, while the beans are on the plant, you can just kill off all the weeds. And so that's why GMO soybeans at the store have higher rates of this pesticide, glyphosate, than non-GMO. It's kind of an indirect effect. And so the question then becomes, how bad are GMOs? It depends on how bad glyphosate is. And the IARC has come out suggesting it may be a human carcinogen. And so then that's the concern. It's the higher levels of pesticides, of this herbicide glyphosate, and not the gene construct itself that gives it that herbicide resistance. Yes?
Me?
You! So osteoarthritis, there is, in fact, I just scripted a new video on osteoarthritis. I'm doing a fasting webinar this month, 27th, 29th, late 26th. I would have been a day late, thank you. Why isn't anybody on the webinar? We've already had more than 1,000 people signed up, very cool. There's actually going to be 2 fasting webinars this year. One this month, on the 26th, please remember. And then September, we're going to do another one. On a separate set of fasting, it was just too massive, and I wanted to keep them to 3 hours. So there's a fasting osteoarthritis that showed benefits, but it was probably because they switched them to a plant-based diet. What can you do if you're already eating a plant-based diet to decrease? We tend to not think of osteoarthritis as an inflammatory disorder, but it actually is. The most important thing we can do is we can keep weight off our knees. And so losing weight can keep the weight off our knees. So some of it is this kind of mechanical wear and tear in addition to the inflammatory component. What can we do about the inflammatory component? We can eat not just a plant-based diet, but a plant-based diet packed with anti-inflammatory foods like spices like turmeric and ginger, etc. So drinking chai tea or something that has all those spices together would be an excellent choice for somebody with osteoarthritis. Yes? I script out a video, but sometimes the video doesn't actually appear so I'm like, I got a new video out, and they're like, I haven't seen this video. It's because it's like out the next week or something. But I just did a video on dairy and cancer, right? Or is it not up yet? Okay. We could actually, let me see if we, hold on. Maybe we will watch a video that no one's ever seen before. What do you think? Wouldn't that be cool? Let's do it. Okay, everybody want a Wi-Fi password that works? S, B. Oh, here it is. Whoa! Let's see. Well, that's old. What's the newest? Effects of hormones in milk. No, I think it's up already. Don't you think? There we go. Dairy. Maybe it's up. Dairy and cancer. Boom! Hello. It's totally up. All right. Well, we could play it. You want to play it? Yeah. Here's the answer to your question. Boo-doo-doo.
Studies comparing country-by-country cancer rates have shown up to a 7-fold variation in the incidence of prostate cancer worldwide, with low rates in parts of Asia and Africa, and high rates in North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Northern Europe. Here's the map of prostate cancer mortality. Could dairy consumption have something to do with it, given Northern Europeans, Americans, Australians drink a lot of milk, whereas most non-Caucasians in the world are lactose intolerant? But just because a country drinks a lot of milk and has a lot of cancer doesn't mean the individuals within that country that are drinking the milk are getting the cancer. That's why we need cohort studies, where you find out how much milk people drink and follow those individuals over time and see if those who drink more milk get more cancer. There have been dozens of such studies done. Put them all together, and intakes of total dairy products, including low-fat milk, were indeed associated with increased prostate cancer risk. The question is, why? Maybe it's just all the calcium? They found that the more calcium people consume, the higher their risk of prostate cancer. Yeah, but most people get their calcium from dairy, so how do we know this isn't just a dairy effect? Before we start worrying about kale and other non-dairy sources of calcium, it'd be nice to see dairy calcium teased out from non-dairy calcium intakes, and that's exactly what they did. Yes, the more calcium from dairy sources, the higher the risk of cancer, but non-dairy sources of calcium were found to be protected. So it wasn't a calcium effect, it was a dairy effect. This suggests that other components of dairy may be to blame. They suggest it's the animal protein boosting the levels of a cancer-promoting growth hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. If you look at 28 studies involving nearly 28,000 people, this is what's called an albatross plot. Any study to the right of this line shows a link between IGF-1 levels and dairy product, milk specifically, or dairy protein consumption, and any study hitting this line or over shows a significant association with higher IGF-1 levels. This could also explain why plant-based diets can be so protective. Put watch and wait cancer patients on a whole food plant-based diet for a year, no chemo, no radiation, lifestyle changes only, and get a significant reduction in PSA levels, indicative of tumor shrinkage, their bloodstream becoming nearly 8 times better at suppressing the growth of cancer cells. Do biopsies, and you can show changes in gene expression, a downregulation of critical cancer genes, effectively switching off cancer growth genes at a genetic level. Whereas if you instead eat lots of dairy after a prostate cancer diagnosis, you may suffer a 76% higher risk of death overall, and a 141% increased risk of dying specifically from your cancer. Even without IGF-1, the milk protein casein appears to be a cancer cell proliferation promoting factor, increasing the growth of prostate cancer cells, at least in a petri dish, and the same thing with whey, the other major animal protein in dairy. See, nearly 100% of advanced prostate cancers thrive by upregulating a growth enzyme called TOR, and dairy protein boosts TOR signaling even higher, which only makes sense, right? Calves have to grow like 40 times faster than human babies, and so cow's milk has to be packed with growth promoters, not to mention the hormones in milk, especially from cows who are already pregnant again. This commercialized milk production by pregnant cows releases uncontrolled amounts of bovine steroid hormones into the human food chain, and so the combination may well explain the observed association between high dairy consumption and increased risk of prostate cancer. From an evolutionary perspective, the persistent abuse of the growth-promoting signaling system of bovine milk by humans over their entire lifespan, not just drinking milk during infancy, maintains the most important hallmark of cancer biology, this sustained proliferative signaling to grow, grow, grow. And so there's this interest in trying to define the safe upper limits of long-term milk and dairy intake for the prevention of the most common dairy-promoted cancer in men. But if you look at diet and cancer guideline recommendations, yeah, milk may increase risk of prostate cancer. However, no recommendation was provided for cutting down on dairy because the evidence for prostate cancer conflicted with decreased risk of colorectal cancer. High dairy intake is associated with increased prostate cancer risk, but decreased colon cancer risk. So it's like, alcohol may be an intoxicating carcinogen, but policymakers hesitate to introduce effective alcohol policies, or even to support the addition of cancer warning labels for fear they might undermine any possible health benefits of alcohol use. Now, I've talked about how the purported benefits of alcohol appear to be evaporating. Is dairy really protective against colon cancer? If you put all the cohort studies together, where they measured dairy consumption, then followed people for years to see who got cancer, milk and total dairy consumption was indeed associated with a reduction in colorectal cancer risk, one of our deadliest cancers. Now, people who drink more milk just happen to tend to exercise more, smoke less, drink less, eat less meat, which could explain some of the association. However, many of the studies adjusted for these kinds of confounding factors. More likely, it was the protective effects of the calcium, which may bind up pro-inflammatory bile acids in the gut, though high-fat dairy products like cheese may actually increase bile acids, explaining why the cheese appeared to cancel out the calcium benefit. So might we be able to get the best of both worlds by consuming non-dairy calcium sources? If you randomize people to calcium supplements, you can get a significant reduction in recurring colon polyps, which can otherwise turn into cancer, though calcium pills have been associated with adverse cardiovascular effects. And so the best of all worlds, if you want to take a precautionary approach in terms of nutrition and cancer, is to obtain calcium through low-oxalate, dark green, leafy vegetables, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, or, if necessary, calcium-fortified foods such as soy or almond milk.
Ta-da! Okay, so the bottom line, right? So dairy is associated with increased prostate cancer risk, but decreased risk of colorectal cancer, the second leading cancer killer of men and women combined. And so that's why no one talks about the whole dairy and cancer thing, because it's good for one, bad for the other. But in the prostate cancer risk, it's not the calcium, so we don't have to worry about non-dairy sources of calcium. But in the protective effects of dairy was the calcium. So you can get the benefits without the risks by eating non-dairy sources of calcium. Okay, yes. It's important to realize the kind of historical, and I have a video on this too, a historical background of the entire field of dietetics. And that is, it evolved out of our understanding of deficiency states. And so once we discovered diseases like scurvy, vitamin C deficiency, or beriberi, or pellagra, or kwashiorkor, we realized that there are vitamins. We discovered these vitamins. There are certain nutrients that if we don't get, we die. They're essential to human life. And that's where the field of dietetics was born, was finding out what we needed. And so they have this deficiency mindset, or you gotta make sure you get enough of your recommended daily allowance of all the various nutrients. Like, that's the whole field. Okay, but we're not dying of pellagra anymore. We're not dying of kwashiorkor. What we're dying of disease is the opposite. We're dying of excess nutrient diseases. We're dying of excess saturated fat and cholesterol and trans fats and sodium. So actually, what people are dying of these days is the opposite. It's not, are you getting enough of X, Y, and Z? It's, how are you not getting too much of X, Y, and Z? That's what's going to kill you. I mean, how many people have ever heard of anybody with obesity or diabetes or heart disease or colorectal cancer? I mean, these are the diseases that people are, but the whole field of nutrition is just not geared that way. And that's why when you hear dietitians talk, it's like, are you getting enough? Whereas if you hear, kind of lifestyle medicine doctors talk, well, what we're seeing is we're seeing all these diseases of excess, these chronic diseases from overly rich diets, but that's just not in the kind of mentality of dietetics. And so that's why you just see a kind of a different viewpoint. In terms of some of these other, like the functional medicine, you see this in naturopathy, you see in this bioindividuality stuff. These are ways for people to sell you supplements. If you are a doctor, you make tons of money. It is one of the most lucrative professions. Now, look, if you just want to make money, you go to the stock market or something. So people go into medicine, they do have some kind of ideals, right? But what if you don't have an MD? How are you going to make money when you can't do surgery that costs $100,000 on people? You can't prescribe drugs and get all the kickbacks from drug companies. What can you do? You're not covered by insurance. So someone comes, sees you, what are you only going to treat rich people? Give you life? How you sell them supplements. You sell them, right? And so that's how these kind of more alternative healthcare professionals actually make money, how they send their kids to college, how they buy their BMWs. So they have this, oh, well, maybe that's a diet for other people, but you particularly, you need this, or you're deficient in this, or yeah, but the soils are depleted, so take my XYZ supplements, which, hey, I just so happen to sell. Check it out. And so much, and the evidence base for so much of the supplementation is either not there at all, or even worse, shows there actually can cause harm. And so that's why you just see this whole orientation of many of these professions towards these, it's a really problem with reimbursement. I think, how can people make a living just telling people to eat fruits and vegetables and good things? There's health coaches now and stuff, but how do you get paid? How do you get reimbursed? It doesn't matter what the school. You can go to whatever, eat meat, dairy, and go on a keto diet school. Once you get out and have the credentials, right? You can do whatever you want. You can heal people the way you want to heal people. And so it's just like, keep your head down, get through it, get the credentials that'll allow you to enter the system and be able to make a living doing this. So depending on the source of pain, there's different kinds of pain. There's neuropathic pain, there's inflammatory pain. Typically, when people are talking about pain, like arthritis, usually there's kind of an inflammatory component, something like fibromyalgia. And so we're talking about anti-inflammatory foods. Now, in the case of, you mentioned, are there foods that can make things worse? About 1 in 20 people with joint pain, unspecified joint pain, feel better cutting nightshade vegetables out of their diet. So that's tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. And so that's amazing. That one simple little dietary tweak and all of a sudden your joint pain goes away. So everybody I see with joint pain, I say, give it a try. 2 weeks, cut out nightshade vegetables, see if it helps. See if you're the lucky 1 in 20. And now 95% of the time, they're not, right? They're the 19 out of the 20 group. And there's no benefits. So I said, quick, put all those wonderful vegetables back. They're super healthy, have all sorts of other benefits. So you don't want to cut healthy foods out of your diet unless you need to. But look, in those 1 in 20 people, it really helps. So that's something you can give, you have a try. If now that's tough. So there's the studies that we have on nerve pain are only on diabetic nerve pain. So we don't have studies on, but we have some miraculous results with whole food plant-based diets with diabetic nerve pain, but we don't have, we have studies on other nerve disorders like multiple sclerosis, but not pain like trigeminal pain or, sciatic pain may have to do with disc degeneration. There's good data showing that atherosclerosis in the vertebral arteries that feed your vertebral discs play a role in the disc degeneration. Our vertebral discs, the cushioning between in our spine is the largest avascular tissue in the body, meaning there's no blood vessels actually inside them. So all the nutrients have to just kind of trickle in, diffuse in from the outside. All the waste products have to diffuse out. You need a really rich blood flow to support your discs. And if you have clogs in your vertebral arteries, you can do MRIs. You can see clogs in all your arteries. You have clogs in your heart, you can get a heart attack. Clogs in your brain, you have a stroke. Clogs in your vertebral arteries, you can degenerate your discs and get low back pain, sciatic pain, etc., etc. Now, for the clogs in your heart, you can go on a plant-based diet. You can actually open up the arteries without drugs, without surgery, and have a reversal. The question is, can we reverse low back pain, one of the leading causes of disability, by increasing blood flow, or are the discs too far gone and they're just not going to come back? Never been done, never been tried. Love to see a trial on reversal of low back pain, randomizing people to plant-based diet. Hasn't been done, certainly worth a try. So you have uropathic bacteria in your rectum, which is the bladder infecting causing bacteria, which is then creeping up and causing bladder infections. Some people with different anatomy are more susceptible than others. And the question is there anything besides drugs that can prevent UTIs, and actually cranberry products? So I don't know if have you tried cranberry juice, unsweetened? You can also, obviously, what's the best way to eat cranberries? As cranberries, right? Wait a second. Ooh, how do you eat cranberries? You make smoothies out of cranberries. In fact, I have a drink, my pink juice recipe. What do they call it? Pink something? Where it's just cranberries and a harmless sweetener, and you whip it up, and you're just drinking cranberries. Or you put cranberries in your oatmeal with some dates or raisins, something sweet, so it's not totally sour. But I encourage you to do a trial of eating cranberries every day. I have videos on that in terms of the dose. I forget the dose, but it was a really reasonable amount of cranberries. And see if that will allow you to the same relief without the antibiotics. That would be my recommendation. There are capsules that contain cranberry extracts. The concern is we're not sure still exactly what it is in the cranberry that is preventing UTIs. There's all sorts of theories. There are certain compounds that prevent E. coli from attaching to the bladder wall, but we're still not sure. So when you extract out, it's unclear whether you're extracting the right ingredients. That's why I always try to default to the whole food, because then you're getting everything. Yeah, you're probably getting lots of things that aren't helping, but they're all healthy stuff anyway. And so where do you get cranberries all year round? Frozen. You get frozen cranberries. Stock up. Sometimes you can't even find frozen cranberries the rest of the year. When it comes Thanksgiving, I stock up my freezer with lots of cranberries because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get them. Super healthy. Try those, and then 7 years later come back and say, it wasn't the chicken, it wasn't the cranberries. Yeah. Okay, so D-mannose is there's all sorts of different kinds of sugars, and D-mannose can help reduce urinary tract infections that follow intercourse. And so for those who, every time they have intercourse, they get urinary tract infections, having a dose of D-mannose in addition to urinating immediately after intercourse to kind of flush anything out, but the bruising of that area can increase your risk of getting infected. If that's the case, D-mannose may help, though it has not been shown to help with other kinds of chronic urinary tract infection problems. So we used to think that nerve cells were born with a certain number and they just go down. That nerves are the one cell in the body that can't regenerate, they don't divide, they don't multiply. You start with it and you just lose them throughout your life. And then a remarkable series of experiments were done with terminally ill cancer patients in this case, who agreed to get injected with some nasty radioactive dye right before, that bound to DNA right before they died, as kind of as a gift to science, that allowed us to actually show that there is, even late in life, reproduction of nerve cells. They actually are able to divide and create new nerve cells. And we can date nerve cells by certain radioactive elements that were released in these open-air neutron bomb tests back in the Marshall Islands. We released so much of this crazy, weird radiation at the time, you can actually go back and kind of like growth rings on a tree, find out when that nerve was born. because we knew when those bombs went off. Anyway, that's fascinating science. Bottom line, we can regenerate nerves. That is why Dr. Denornish is doing this really amazing trial right now. So we already conquered killer number one, heart disease, reversing heart disease. He was the one that I just showed reversing prostate cancer, reversing the progression of prostate cancer with the same plant-based diet. So he could do something wimpy like low back pain, but no! He's going against Alzheimer's disease. He's taking people with Alzheimer's disease, put them on a plant-based diet, randomizing, and see if he can actually not just stop, but actually reverse the course of Alzheimer's disease. And that's predicated on the fact that you can grow new nerves. The trial is ongoing right now. We don't know results yet, but that's what's going on right now. Okay, so we know we can regenerate parts of nerves, but entire nerves can regenerate. So, having said that, there's obviously cases in which nerves aren't regrowing. In your particular case, without a diagnosis, without a cause, we can't treat the cause. Whatever is happening that is compromising your nervous system, if we don't know what it is, if it's some environmental thing, if it's some genetic thing, it's whatever, then we don't know what to do about it. So I would encourage you, or encourage anyone with an undiagnosed health problem, you said, look, I went to my doctor, they didn't know what it was. And you go to another doctor. And not just a second opinion, you go to a third opinion, you go to a fourth opinion. And sometimes these crazy stories where it's like the 22nd person I went to, they said, oh, well, what was that amazing case with the lead? Oh yeah, someone was told to eat bone meal. And they were getting lead poisoning. And so someone eventually figured it out. Destroying their nerves, they couldn't walk, and then they stopped them. Anyway, I would just keep going until and then once we have a diagnosis, then I can look up. I can say, oh, well, that particular disease, these are the foods that are best. So, yeah, the whole point is to kind of treat the cause. Without removing the cause, presumably it will continue to deteriorate if under the same conditions it's deteriorating now. You ready for that Wi-Fi password again?
Don't say it.
Why not?
Because we don't see it. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's why I say it. Don't say it because I can't see it? I don't understand. Okay, here we go. S, B, V, Z. You got ears, right? Come on. We don't have to play this. Yeah. But there it is. Boom. Ta-da! So, Dr. Gundry's The Plant Paradox is wrong. And then follow-up video, how to avoid lectin poisoning. And then the third video in the series is, are lectins in food good or bad for you? Anyway, so there's the video series I would refer you to. So Dr. Gundry wrote this book saying that that lectins are bad for you. I debunk it. The short version, debunk it. So that's where I'd send you right there. It goes through all of it. And if you have any follow-up questions, be happy to talk about it. In terms of the acid base, there's this sense that some foods are acidic, some foods are alkaline forming, and so we should try to have more alkaline than acidic. Okay. That makes essentially no sense when it comes to our bloodstream. No matter what you eat, your pH stays the same. The only time your pH really changes is right in the ICU right before you die. You do what's called an ABG. You do arterial blood gas. You see your pH is dropping. The concern is that you're a goner at that point. Your pH stays the same regardless of what you eat. But your urine pH changes dramatically based on what you eat. So you eat a lot of dark green leafy vegetables and your urine becomes very basic. You eat a lot of meat, you eat a lot of fine grains, and then your urine becomes acidic. And you can do these simple pH, you can pee on a pH strip and you can see it turn different colors depending on what you just ate. And in fact, you can use purple cabbage to create a pH solution that turns blue in one way, turns blue when it's basic, turns pink when it's, and so I have this whole, you can just pour purple cabbage juice in your toilet and pee on it, and all of a sudden, it's a really cool video. You think I'm joking. It's not purple. Purple, where's my, testing your diet with pea and purple cabbage. There it is. Anyway, why do we care? The reason we care is because by alkalizing our urine has beneficial effects by preventing the formation of kidney stones as well as decreasing muscle loss with aging. As we age, we naturally lose something called sarcopenia. We naturally lose muscle mass. I go into exactly why. Alkalizing our urine, we actually lose less protein as we age. And that's another benefit. But beyond these kind of narrow, mostly kidney-based benefits, acid-base balance doesn't really make much sense, though their recommendations, their bottom line recommendations, don't eat a lot of meat, eat lots of dark green leafy vegetables, spot on, right? So if someone came to you and said, the aliens in my tinfoil hat say, eat lots of greens, don't eat a lot of meat, I'm like, I don't like how you got there, but the conclusion, solid. Right? And my concern is that they might spout that theory to someone in the know and they dismiss the whole thing. Oh, well, you're just against me because you have some crazy theory about physiology, where it's like, yeah, but there's ways we can conclude to eat the same diet that don't make up things in biochemistry that don't exist. So what I used to get is I used to get cases of canned beans, like BPA-free canned beans, right? But now I can make my own beans. Dried beans are like the cheapest thing in the planet. So instead of like 30 cents a cup, it's like 5 cents a cup. So now you can splurge and spend 30 cents a cup to get canned beans, but I can make my beans. So I can make hummus in, a couple minutes. I got chickpeas, dried chickpeas, to all of a sudden, boom, hummus. How cool is that? I love pressure cookers, right, but it's not a lectin thing, it's a convenience thing about, making beans anytime you want. And it just sits there for a year. I got hummus anytime. So the question was, is erythritol still okay? And actually in my pink juice recipe with the frozen cranberries, was frozen cranberries. I think I put some fresh mint leaves to add some greens in there, and erythritol as the sweetener. And so I concluded that erythritol was the only harmless sweetener I could find, a non-caloric sweetener, a low-calorie sweetener. And the two caloric sweeteners that were healthy, blackstrap molasses and date sugar, which is just powdered pulverized dates, and then talked about the harms associated with Splenda and aspartame and other things. But erythritol seemed to escape all that. I looked at monk's fruit and allulose. So monk fruit and A-L-L, I think it's just A-L-L-U-L-O-S. Allulose. And so allulose, erythritol, and monk fruit don't have the associated downsides of the aspartames and the splendas and the acesulfame K. However, all low-calorie sweeteners suffer from the same problem, which is this disconnect between what your taste buds are experiencing and what your brain is experiencing. So when you put sugar in your mouth, your body knows, when you taste sweet, your body expects, well, there's only one sweet thing in the world, basically, there's fruit or honey, and so pumps out insulin, all sorts of things before sugar ever hits your system. Because it's smart. It's what's called a cephalic phase, a brain phase of digestion, starts the moment it hits your tongue. And so your body is ready for this massive sugar load. And you get something super sweet like a diet soda, regardless of what it's sweetened with, even something harmless. So yeah, something like allulose erythritol is not going to give you migraine headaches like aspartame, but we get this disconnect. We get this tremendous sweetness on our tongue. Our body reacts by saying, all right, sugar load, here it comes, and never arrives. Our brain is like, whoa, wait a second. We had this thermostat. This much sweetness equals this much sugar, so I got to put this much insulin out, and I got to ready the body for this load coming in. And so it says, wow, I must have been totally screwed up. Actually, this much sugar, this much sweetness doesn't mean this much sugar. It means this much sugar. I hardly got any sugar at all. And so it messes up this thermostat in our brain. So then all of a sudden when we actually eat something sweet, like eat a banana or something, our body says, that tastes sweet. There's no sugar in it. I already know you taste sweet, no sugar. And your body's not ready for that banana. And you actually, in a video about this, you actually suffer bad physiological consequences. So if in the morning you drink aspartame sweetened beverage or a monk fruit sweetened beverage, you have higher blood sugars throughout the day, higher average blood sugars throughout the day than if you drank straight sugar. Wait a second, sugar-free, higher blood sugars, how is that possible? Is because you're messing with your whole system is not used. There's no such thing as sweetness without calories. There's no such thing, evolutionarily. There's just nothing. Millions of years, no such thing, sweetness without calories. and it mucks with our physiology. Even though the allulose, erythritol, monk fruit don't have these associated negative side effects, they still have this fundamental problem. And so ideally, we should eat, you want something sweet? Sweet potatoes or cherries. Oh, it's cherry season, or all that amazing watermelon over there, or anything. Really whole food sources of sweetness, really the best. Although look, if you gotta get cranberries in somewhere, if the only way you're gonna drink your green tea is sweetened, the green tea, it could be a carrier for sneaking healthier food. The only way you're gonna eat a grapefruit, you sprinkle something sweet on it. Well, the grapefruit's really good for you. If you're not gonna, so I want you to eat that citrus. But it shouldn't be considered benign on its own, even if it doesn't have all these associated side effects.
Tried stevia when you put
Stevia is actually harmful beyond this effect because of your gut bacteria take this steviol and create these steviosides, which are actually toxic, but at high doses. So 2 stevia-sweetened beverages a day should be considered harmless. But if you sweeten everything with stevia at a typical American dose of sweetness, you would actually exceed the World Health Organization recommendation for upper limit of stevia compounds. Again, if it's small enough dose, it's harmless. Oh, we're overtime! See everybody tomorrow night!
Okay.